Hi everyone, hope you're all doing well, and today we're going to talk about some of the cracks that are starting to appear in the stock market. Now, this week it's kind of been ignored really. There's only been one or two things, but everyone's kind of been like, hey, look at GameStop, and not really realise that this is kind of going on in the background. And the stock market has posted a pretty terrible week for recent standards really. The stock market has had its worst week for quite a few months, but it's not really being talked about because, everyone's like, hey, look at GameStop. And maybe this starts to get a little bit more news over the next coming week or so. Depends on how long everyone's kind of looking at GameStop. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, there's some massive problems starting to appear in the stock market. Now, 2 weeks ago, I covered this. I said there's some stock market problems. And I made that video just saying that, hey, look, we're starting to get into a bit of a dangerous position. And, I think most people kind of saw that video and, appreciated like, oh yeah, that's actually really true. But even then, I think a few people are like, I don't think so. I think we'll still go up. And yeah, since them 2 weeks, I said like I'm just being a bit more cautious. I never kind of fear for a crash because I always want a crash because they're the best times to buy, or even a correction. I said in that video that I don't think there'll be a crash, but I do think there'll be a correction of 5% to 10%. And I'm never going to exactly plan for it. I'm never going to totally stop buying or sell all my positions because, it might not happen. But I'm just, preparing for that possibility of just, slow down the buying a little bit, build the cash pile up a little bit, just be a little bit more cautious. And that's what I said on that video 2 weeks ago. Now, there's a lot more evidence since I made that video 2 weeks ago that we're starting to get into a stock market that's going to be maybe a little bit more choppy going forward. And the first thing that was a big major red flag this week is earnings. Now, earnings totally got ignored because once again, everyone's like, hey, GameStop, look at that. That people ignored earnings. And on the earnings front, it was kind of crazy because we had companies like Apple that brought out earnings, and Apple's earnings were absolutely amazing. There was companies like Facebook that brought earnings out that were absolutely amazing, and the stock didn't move. Apple's stock didn't move either. Microsoft brought one of the best earnings out that I've seen them do for a very long time, and they were amazing. They were like 10 out of 10 earnings for Microsoft, and the stock only moved just slightly. And earnings weren't talked about, and earnings as well were amazing. A lot of these companies were bringing blowout earnings, and the earnings just didn't move. And it ties into the next point of valuations. Now, I've said on this channel for a few weeks now, since I made that last video, saying that valuations now are very high, very, very high, and there's a lot of greed out there. There's companies that are trading at the highest valuations that they have ever done, and if they're not trading at the highest valuations that they have ever done, they're only just slightly below that. And the combination of earnings and valuations and companies bringing out amazing earnings and the valuations, there were no excitement. A lot of these earnings should have moved the stock up, 5-10%. But because the valuations are so high, people have just stopped buying into these companies now because there's just no much more, and we're starting to run out of room for people to buy into this stock because everyone's involved in them. And that was a big major sign to me of hey, if we're bringing out amazing earnings and the stocks aren't going up, we've kind of starting to run out of buyers here. And at the moment, what we kind of got into at the moment is when we look at the stock market, there's a lot of God mindsets going on, and people are kind of chasing a lot of things as well. That's another worrying thing that we have right now. And another worrying thing as well is that when you go around the street now, I put here that you start when your mum starts asking if you want to start buying in stocks, and they start talk. When you're going around, it's normally the sign of a really high market is when people that never had interested in stocks are starting to ask, how do you get into stocks? And I heard about GameStop. How do I buy GameStop? And that's always a sign that the market is getting towards a peak, when people that never have any interest in stocks are now trying to look into getting into stocks. So there's a lot of combination of things of what is happening right now that is a very bad combination. The earnings, amazing earnings, and the stocks aren't moving. The valuations are so high. When you look at the investors, there's the God set mindset out there right now that people are chasing stocks that you would never buy, but because we've been on such a good run, everyone's now going for riskier and riskier investments. And also that the stock market, normally when it gets to the all-time highs, attracts people that aren't very interested in the stock market, which is also starting to happen. So with all that in combination, one thing was really clear this week. the stock market dropped, depending on what index you look at, 3 to 5%. So the stock market is already dropping, but no one really talks about this because, like I say, everyone's kind of like, hey, look at GameStop. But the stock market is dropping. And when I made that video 2 weeks ago, I said, hey, 5% to 10% drop, it should happen at some point. And we've kind of already starting to have that right now. Now, the other thing is that I don't really think it will be a crazy drop. I don't think we'll ever see it, go back to like something like a March situation. But like I said on the video, and it's starting to happen, a 5 to 10% drop will look like it's going to happen, and we're having it. So that's already starting to make an appearance, but no one's really talking about it. Now, there's a few situations where this can go from here. So the next one is the stimulus check. So there could be another stimulus check. If there's another stimulus check, then maybe then we'll see valuations go higher. Maybe people will start buying. Maybe there'll be some new buyers to come in here, because at the moment, like I said, we've run out of buyers. But if people have the stimulus check, maybe there'll be more buyers coming in. They want to buy stocks, because that's what the big problem is now. We're kind of running out of buyers at the moment. But in the same way, where we go from here, there's another counter argument that we have, which is Biden and tax. So Biden is looking at maybe putting up corporation tax. If corporation tax goes up, then obviously companies have to pay more tax, profit gets hit. What does that make for the company? Expanding, spending, dividend, buybacks. I mean, that could change. That could be a little bit of a game changer over the next kind of course of a year. So there's a longer term view of this, and there's also a shorter term view of this. And the short term is that we were so far extended, and that has a pullback. It's just where the next few months go now from here. If the stimulus check comes in, that may give us the leg up a little bit higher. If Biden does have and maybe puts a bigger tax in, that could maybe send it a little bit lower. But just in general, like we can see at the moment, we're at a situation now where we are starting to run out of buyers. And the combination of running out of buyers, the kind of godlike mindset that people are getting a bit more risky and riskier, it's like an elastic band. And the longer you stretch that elastic band, the further you stretch it, the quicker it snaps back. And that's kind of what's going on here. So this was kind of a little bit of a wake-up call that I said about 2 weeks ago. This is potentially a situation that's kind of brewing, and it is starting to happen. So from my point of view now, we're like, what does it kind of leave me in an investing wise? But so like I said at the start of the video, like I'm never going to sell out my stocks, because we might get the leg up, we go higher, and you miss out on another bunch of 5-10% gains. I'm also not going to stop buying, because the same thing happens there. We miss another leg up of 5-10%, and some great companies, some gems that are hidden, still might go up in value even in a bear market. If we have a downtrending market, some stocks will still go up. And I'm trying to find a lot of them companies at the moment, and that's kind of my main focus. It's a lot harder to find these now. When we go back to 6 months ago, there was literally 90% of companies you could buy and they would have gone up. Now you're looking, and if you want to get companies that go up, 100% in the next 2 years, there's a very small amount of companies that are going to be doing that, and it's very hard to try and find them right now. So that's one thing that I'm also like considering at the moment. So, like I say, I'm kind of, I'm not selling out of any companies. I'm probably still going to buy some, because I don't want to miss if the market still has a leg up. But at the same time now, I'm kind of looking at the situation a lot more different than, say, 6 months ago. I'm looking at stocks a lot more different. I'm looking at really good valuations, which is really hard to find on some amazing companies. And that's one of the tricky things. I'm also preparing to make sure I have cash if the opportunity of a dip happens, because I want a dip to happen. Because if a dip happens, I can get great companies at cheaper prices, and that's always the amazing thing. So I'm looking for opportunities as well at the same time. I'm kind of like making a Christmas list of like, if we have a little bit of a more dip, if this 3 to 5% dip that we have goes down to 5 to 10%. I mean, if it'd be really amazing if it goes 10 to 15%. And then I'm like, well, there's a lot of opportunities I can go buy now. So I'm kind of making a bit of a Christmas shopping list, writing a few stocks down that I like, maybe prices that I go buy. So there's a lot of things I'm kind of plotting out. I'm kind of plotting out now a case of that if we do go up, I still have try to find a few gems for that situation. But at the same time now that we are starting to see a few more cracks are starting to appear, I'm kind of also plotting out for if we have a little bit of a downtrend, where I go from there, and also preparing myself that I'm in a good position, that if we do have a little bit of a downtrend, that I have the money on the side to go buy a lot of the great opportunities that will dip. You know, you can already see it. You know, even though the indexes have only moved down 3 to 5% over the last kind of week, if you look at some of them companies that have really shot up, look at the difference of how quick they do drop. Because you look at some of the companies that have been doing really well, when the indexes drop 3 to 5%, and the stocks that are definitely, you know, running out of buyers, are really high valuations, they drop a lot quicker than this. They drop like 10, 20%. And also I'm looking at them stocks and considering that as well. So there's a combination of a few things going on here, but I thought it was a great follow-on of where the stock market is in a short-term point of view, which is obviously starting to show a few cracks, and also with the long-term point of view, the two directions where the stock market could go. And, you know, it could go either way, but the good thing is always to be prepared for, if it moves in the right way and we go up, that you benefit from that. But also if the stock market and this happens, the tax, and we start moving down, then you're benefiting from that position as well. You know, you look at the gain in shares and stock prices when Trump came in and Trump cut a lot of this corporation tax. You look at the jump in share price, because companies at the time were like, what do we do with all this free money? And a lot of them, you know, started doing more dividends, started doing share buyback programs, and share buyback programs help the stock price go up. If that's taken away from the companies and the tax goes back up, that's going to stop, you know, share prices going up as much, for example. And that's all the factors that you're trying to like price in right now. And it is a bit more of a tricky situation. It's a different situation from what we were at 6 months ago, and it's just something to be really just to start planning for. So yeah, just following on a video that I made 2 weeks ago, talking about that, you know, hey, you know, we are starting to see a few situations brewing here, and after a lot quicker than what I thought, after 2 weeks, the cracks are starting to appear. We've had the little drop. We've had a few more red flags starting to appear. Earnings, another couple of red flags starting to appear. And I think it's just a good follow-on to like be, hey, you know, this is how quick it can change in the stock market. And that is just preparing for them scenarios. So yeah, following on just from that warning video that I made 2 weeks ago, that there's a few problems brewing. There's showing the signs a little bit here. We're starting to see the effects on the stock market, which have been ignored because of GameStop and everything like that. But just, you know, carry on being a bit cautious here and don't get too carried away, you know. So hopefully that was a bit useful, because I thought I want to talk about the stock market situation and the different ways that it could go from here, which hopefully, you know, kind of keeps people in check instead of getting carried away, you know. So hopefully that was a little bit useful for you guys. If you could, smash the like button. If you do want to start buying shares, there's a link to a free trade account and trading 212 account. You join from there and you also get a free share. I will try and do the free UK stocks to buy tomorrow, so I'll try to get that done for you guys. I'll also have some portfolio reviews coming up, and there is one brand new stock that I am considering. I think I've finally found a little gem that I might buy, so I might let you guys know in a few days time. Just got to do a bit more research on it, so we'll see what happens there. But thanks so much, smash the like button, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you in the next video.